Okay. Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV. What we hear, what we do here is for free in love of Jesus Christ for the Holy Mother Church, and we'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. And when you give us donations, it doesn't go to me or Brother Alexis. It all goes back into equipment, and things have changed a bit. You can no longer do the Stripe payment, but you can send in a donation by check through the mail, and all the address on where to mail the donation will be found on the bottom of our show pages until we get a new online payment method. And so we're going to take up chapter 4 of Sutton's book, Standard Oil Fuels the World War II. We welcome Brother Alexis Bonello to the show.
Thank you, AJ, for having me back on Order Militaris Radio TV. It's always a pleasure to be part of this new apostolate breaking grounds in independent Catholic media. And we've gotten more independent in recent days because Stripe banned us for some unknown crime. I think it's because we were raising money for humanitarian relief of Armenians involved in the conflict of the Armenian-Azerbaijani war.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as Stripe is concerned, that's illegal and racist and hateful. So Stripe has set itself on the side of genocide, and they're persecuting our company for raising $215 for Armenians. So if you work with Stripe, you want to get a new payment provider. And if you think well of our organization, because I think we're the only Christian relief organization that I know of that has been attacked in the United States in the last 4 years by both PayPal and Stripe. And all we do is help in humanitarian efforts. So it's completely bizarre, and it shows you how much hate is out there and how much a will from corporate America is to destroy Christians worldwide. They fear an American company that would stand up for them. And we thank everyone who's helped our corporation in the last 4 years. A lot of Americans, Canadians, Brits, people from all around the world, but mostly Americans have helped us. We haven't yet found the level of support we need to do more than just raise some money now and then, like every other year for some project. But we have done a lot of good, and I thank everyone for that. And now we have to, if we can't find another payment platform in the United States, we'll have to move our company out of the United States. There's some other country where there is actually more liberty and freedom.
Yep. So we're going to get into the Rockefeller family and Standard Oil, Chevron, Phillips 66, all those big oil groups inside Standard Oil. So again, this is from a memo from the State Department in 1933 that starts off the chapter.
Okay, AJ, remind everyone the book you're reading from and who did all this research.
Okay, we're using the PDF version, which has the copyright thing removed from it, so we could use it to share all this history. But the paperback version has that copyright thing where it says you can't use the book to tell the truth. So you can get the PDF version on the show page, and if you click the book cover of this book right here, you can get this paperback version off of Amazon. And Dr. Anthony C. Sutton did all this work. He was in the deep state, yes, but then once he realized what was going on, it was time to blow the lid off everything. And he does that in all his books. And I urge you to get them all, use them for homeschool. And I believe this one is $14.25 off of Amazon. Might be a little bit more if you go to Barnes and Noble or some other online bookstore.
And Anthony Sutton started as an Anglican, and he died a Roman Catholic, converted to the Catholic faith, because once he realized that the enemy of mankind was the Masonic Lodge, he realized that the only friend of mankind was Christ's church on earth.
Yep.
Catholic.
So the memo from 1933. In 2 years, Germany will be manufacturing oil and gas enough out of soft coal for a long war. The Standard Oil of New York is furnishing millions of dollars to help. Report from the commercial attaché, U.S. Embassy in Berlin, Germany, January 1933, to State Department in Washington, D.C.
Sounds like a favorable note, like they're praising Standard Oil.
Mm-hmm.
Why should someone in the U.S. Embassy be praising an American company for helping Germany to start a war again?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're the signers on the Versailles Treaty, so why should we want war? It doesn't make any sense, other than the person signing that letter must be a Mason writing to another Mason.
Mm-hmm.
Who signed that memorandum? Does it say?
No. Nope, doesn't say. But the chapter starts. It's the Standard Oil group of companies in which the Rockefeller family owned 1/4 in controlling interest, was a critical assistance in helping Nazi Germany prepare for World War II. This assistance in military preparation came about because Germany's relatively insignificant supplies of crude petroleum were quite insufficient for modern mechanized warfare. In 1934, for instance, about 85% of German finished petroleum products were imported. The solution adopted by Nazi Germany was to manufacture synthetic gasoline from its plentiful domestic coal supplies. It was the hydrogenation process of producing synthetic gasoline into an isooctane proprietaries and gasoline that enabled Germany to go to war in 1940. And this hydrogenation process was developed and financed by the Standard Oil Laboratories in the United States in partnership with IG Farben.
So we already exposed IG Farben in a big investigation. Now we're going to talk about how Standard Oil gave Germany the gasoline to run its war on. This seems absolutely incredible that they knew that what they were doing. Why on earth they were doing this?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so all this stuff was evidence presented to Truman, Bone, the Kilgore Committee after World War II, confirmed that Standard Oil had at the same time seriously imperiled the war preparations of the United States. Documentary evidence was presented to all 3 congressional committees that before World War II, Standard Oil had agreed with IG Farben in the so-called JASCO agreement that the synthetic rubber was within Farben's sphere of influence, while Standard Oil was to have an absolute monopoly in the U.S. only if and when Farben allowed development of synthetic rubber to take place in the U.S. Accordingly, concluded the Kilgore Committee, Standard fully accomplished IG's purpose of preventing United States production of dissuading American rubber companies from undertaking independent research and developing synthetic rubber processes.
And I remind everyone that synthetic rubber was absolutely necessary for the war effort because of its use in tires and tubing in mechanized vehicles. And without that, how could the U.S. Produce large amounts of military hardware that would be used in war? And so this is treasonous. I mean, were they accused of treason for this?
Yeah, by the Congress.
They were very American back then.
Oh yeah, I think, could we go back in time and switch them out?
They probably want to join the Christian Party for America once they were able to see what's going on today.
Yeah.
Do you have, can you tell us a story about that accusation of treason?
Yeah. It first has to link with Himmler, though, which
Okay.
got him to say they were treasonous. So,
The story goes through Himmler. So, okay, Himmler was the head of the SS. He's one of the most evil members of Hitler's regime. Okay, so let's not interrupt the story. Where do we go from here?
regrettably, the congressional committees did not explore an even more ominous aspect of this Standard Oil IG Farben collusion. That at this time, directors of Standard Oil of New Jersey had had not only strategic warfare affiliation to IG Farben, but other links with Hitler's Germany, even to the extent of contributing through German subsidiaries companies to Heinrich Himmler's personal fund, with membership in Himmler's circle of friends as late as 1944.
They were contributing to Heinrich Himmler's personal fund as late as 1944.
Mm-hmm.
During during the war, when the U.S. was actually at war with Germany, they were funding Heinrich Himmler.
Yep.
Can't get more treasonous than that.
So during World War II, Standard Oil of New Jersey was accused of treason for this pre-war alliance with Farben, even while continuing wartime activities in Himmler's circle of friends were unknown. The accusations of treason were vehemently denied by Standard Oil. One of the more prominent of these defenses was published by R.T. Haslam, a director of Standard Oil of New Jersey, in the Petroleum Times, December 25th, 1943. Oh, on Christmas. I wondered if anybody read it.
Yeah, well, they published their paper on Christmas because to offend Christians. Mm-hmm.
Entitled Secrets Turned into Mighty War Weapons Through IG Farben Agreement. This was an attempt to turn the tables and present the pre-war collusions as advantageous to the United States. Whatever may have been Standard Oil's wartime recollections and hasty defense, the 1929 negotiations and contracts between Standard and IG Farben were recorded in the contemporary press and described the agreements between Standard Oil of New Jersey and IG Farben and their intent. In April 29, Walter C. Teagle, president of Standard Oil of New Jersey, became a director of the newly organized American IG Farben, not because Teagle was interested in chemical industry, but because he has for some years past enjoyed a very close relationship with certain branches of the research work of the IG Farben industries, which bear closely upon the oil industry. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a very vague statement. It can mean he worked in their factories or he was a member of their Masonic lodges.
Mm-hmm. It was announced by Teagle that joint research on production of oil from coal had been carried on for some time and that a research laboratory for this work was to be established in the United States. In November 1929, this jointly owned Standard Farben Research Company was established under the management of the Standard Oil Company of New Jersey. And all research and patents relating to production of oil from coal held by both IG and Standard were pooled. Previously, during the period 1926 and 1929, the two companies had cooperated in development of the hydrogenation process, and the experimental plants had been placed in operation in both U.S. and Germany. It was now proposed to erect new plants in the U.S. at Bayway, New Jersey, Baytown, Texas, in addition to the expansion of the early experimental plant at Baton Rouge. Standard announced the importance of the new contract as applied to this country, laying the fact that it was made certain that the hydrogenation process would be developed commercially in this country under the guidance of American oil interests. Now, when I was doing some research, folks, before the show, I decided to look up Standard Oil in Baytown, Texas. It's still open. It's still working. Now, Bayway, New Jersey, it's now it's ran by Phillips 66, but it's still working. And Standard Oil in Baton Rouge, it's still there, folks. And as you know from the chapter on IG Farben is still around and richer than ever.
So not only they committed these atrocious collaborations with the Nazi regime, they got super wealthy on it and never punished.
Mm-hmm. In December 1929, the new company, Standard IG Company, was organized. F.A. Howard was named president, and the German and American directors were announced as follows: E.M. Clark, Walter Duisberg, Peter Hurl, R.A. Riedman, H.G. Seidel, Otto von Schneck, and Guy Wellman. Excuse me. The majority of the stock in the research company was owned by Standard Oil. The technical work, the process development work, and the construction of the three new oil from coal plants in the United States was placed in the hands of Standard Oil Development Company, the Standard Oil Technical subsidiary. It is clear from these contemporary reports that the development work on oil from coal was undertaken by Standard Oil New Jersey within the United States and Standard Oil plants, with the majority financing controlled by Standard. The result of this research was made available to IG Farben and became the basis for the development of Hitler's oil from coal program, which made World War II possible. The Haslam article, written by a former professor of chemical engineering at MIT, then vice president of Standard Oil of New Jersey, argued, contrary to these recorded facts, that Standard Oil was able, through its Farben agreements, to obtain German technology for the United States. Haslam cited a manufacturer of toluol and paratone, or OP-penol, used to establish viscosity of oil, an essential material for desert and Russian winter tank operations, and Buna rubber. However, this article, with its erroneous self-serving claims, found its way to wartime Germany and became the subject of a secret IG Farben memorandum dated June 6, 1944. What happened on that day? Oh yeah, the Allies invaded Normandy.
Mm-hmm. Invading Normandy, and they're writing a memorandum about their American company.
And from Nuremberg defendant and then Farben official von Kienerien to fellow Farben management officials. This Kienerien secret memo set out those facts, Haslam avoiding the Petroleum Times article. The memo was in fact a summary of what Standard was unwilling to reveal to the American public, i.e. the major contribution made by Standard Oil of New Jersey to the Nazi war machine. The Farben memorandum states that the Standard Oil agreement were absolutely essential for IG Farben. The closing of an agreement with Standard was necessary for technical, commercial, and financial reasons. Technically, because the specialized experience was available only in a big oil company, was necessary to the further development of our process. No such industry existed in Germany. Commercially, because in the absence of a state economic control in Germany at that time, IG had to avoid a competitive struggle with the great oil powers, who always sold the best gasoline at the lowest price in the contested markets. Financially, because IG, which had been already spent extraordinarily large sums for the development of the process, had to seek financial relief in order to be able to continue development in other new techno fields such as Buna. The Farben memorandum then answered the key question: what did IG Farben acquire from Standard Oil that was vital for the conduct of war? The memo examines those products cited by Haslam, i.e., isooctane, tool, openol, but peritone, and Buna, and demonstrates that contrary to Standard Oil's public claim, their technology came to a great extent from the U.S., not Germany.
Yeah, so the American Standard Oil was trying to claim that their agreement brought technology to America to cover, because that is the exact opposite of the truth. The truth is they were importing technology to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole cover story was an absolute lie, like you see in all these controlled narratives. What they're telling you is an exact opposite lie. COVID-19, it's a lie. There is no pandemic. Everything they're telling you is a lie. The reality is the exact opposite. 9/11, it wasn't Al Qaeda, it was the US government who did it. Uh, Hitler, the Marxists burned the Reichstag down. No, it was the Nazis who burned it down. So it's the exact opposite lie.
Yeah.
These people are evil, these Masons. They're evil people.
Mm-hmm. Um, well, any more of this memorandum that they're talking about?
No, it probably gets into the chemicals, right? And the formulas and the processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see those who get the book can read about it and see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Ethel led for the Wehrmacht. Another prominent example of Standard Oil assistance to Nazi Germany in cooperation with General Motors was in supplying ethyl lead. Ethyl fluid is an anti-knock compound used in both aviation and automobile fuels to eliminate knocking and so improve engine efficiency. Without such anti-knocking compounds, modern mobile warfare would be impractical. In 1924, the Ethel Gasoline Corporation was formed in New York City. It was only owned by the Standard Oil Company of New Jersey and General Motors Corporation to control and utilize U.S. patents for the manufacture and distribution of testosterone lead and ethyl fluid in the U.S. and abroad. Up to 1935, manufacture of these products was undertaken only in the United States. In 1935, Ethel Gasoline Corporation transferred its known how-to to Germany for use in the Nazi rearmament program. This transfer was undertaken over the protests of the U.S. government.
so for people who are not familiar, knocking is when water humidity or water moisture gets in the fuel lines of a combustion engine and prevents ignition, and you get knocking. And ethanol is a form of alcohol, and it binds with water and moisture, removing it from being mixed in with the fuel. And so when it burns, it doesn't cause the knocking and prevent the combustion. So
So Ethel's intention to transfer its anti-knock technology to Nazi Germany came to the attention of the Army Air Corps in Washington, D.C. on December 15, 1943. E.W. Webb, president of Ethel Gasoline, was advised that Washington had learned of the intention of forming a German company with the IG to manufacture ethyl lead in that country. The War Department indicated that there was a considerable criticism of this technological transfer, which might have the gravest repercussions for the U.S., that the commercial demand for ethyl lead in Germany was too small to be of interest, and it has been claimed that Germany is secretly arming an ethyl lead would be doubtless be a viable aid to military aeroplanes.
yeah, because if your engines putter when you're in the air, it's very dangerous. So
And so the Ethel Company was then advised by the Army Air Corps to that under no conditions should you or the board of directors of the Ethel Gasoline Corporation disclose any secrets or know-how in connection with the manufacture of tetraethyl lead to Germany. On January 12, 1935, Webb mailed to the Chief of Army Air Corps a statement of facts, which was in effect a denial that any such technical knowledge would be transmitted. He offered to insert such a clause in the contract to guard against any such transfer, However, contrary to its pledge to the Army Air Corps, Ethel subsequently signed a joint production agreement with IG Farben in Germany to form Ethel GmbH and with Montecatini in fascist Italy for the same purpose. So he sent a letter back to the Army Air Force, lying to their face. And at the same time, he was in Germany signing documents with Farben and with the fascists in Italy.
They are bold liars, these Freemasons. They're absolutely bold. They're absolutely bold, two-faced pieces of trash.
Yep.
And that guy never got punished for what he did either.
Nope.
He should have been strung up.
It is worth noting that directors of Ethel Gasoline Corporation at the time of this transfer, E.W. Webb, President and Director, C.F. Kettering, R.P. Russell, W.C. Teagle, Standard Oil of New Jersey, and trustees of the FDR of Georgia Warm Springs Foundation. There's Roosevelt, folks. F.A. Howard, E.M. Clark, Standard Oil, New Jersey, A.P. Sloan, Jr., D. Brown, J.T. Smith, W.S. Parrish of Standard Oil, New Jersey. The IG Farben files captured at the end of the war confirmed the importance of this particular technical transfer for the German Wehrmacht. Since the beginning of the war, we have been in a position to produce lead tetraethyl solely because of the short time before the outbreak of war, the Americans had established plants for us ready for production and supplied us with all available experience. In this manner, we did not need to perform the difficult work of development because we could start production right away on the basis of all the experience that the Americans had for years.
It's almost as if the Masonic lodges were trying to rush the war through, like the war has to be on schedule.
Mm-hmm. Here we go. Here we go. In 1938, just before the outbreak of the war in Europe, the German Luftwaffe had an urgent requirement for 500 tons of tethyl lead. Ethel was advised by an official of DuPont that such quantities of ethyl would be used by Germany for military purposes. This 500 tons was loaned by Ethel Export Corporation of New York to Ethel GmbH of Germany, a transaction arranged by the Reich Air Ministry with IG Farben director Mueller Conradi. The collateral security was arranged in a letter dated September 21st, 1938, through Brown Brothers Harriman and Company of New York.
There we go. Now we've tied it all up. The letter of it was the letter of trust.
Collateral security.
Collateral security. Isn't that a lovely word for it? We have it, the fingerprints. That proves that they were working with Rockefellers, that Brown Brothers Harriman, the Averill Harrimans, working with the Rockefellers in building up the Nazi working machine. That one document right there. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they actually issued that letter of collateral trust shows that they were being imprudent and rash, because they usually cover their tracks and go through middlemen. Here they did it out in the open because it had to be done quickly. And this shows you how much zeal they had to rebuild Germany and start a war that would kill 40 million people. Mm-hmm. And I think with all the stuff Sutton has exposed in his books, the only sane conclusion is the entire assets of Brown Brothers Harriman must be seized. The entire assets of Standard Oil must be seized. The entire assets of the Rockefeller and Harriman families need to be seized. Mm-hmm. And their graves need to be dug up and dumped out of the United States. These people are traitors. Their dead bodies should be burned, because this is outrageous that they were never made to pay. And all these corrupt politicians, their biographies need to be rewritten so everyone knows that these people were traitors to humanity.
Yeah. Well, it goes into the rubber now. Okay. So after they transferred the Ethel technology for the Nazi war machine was repeated in the cause of synthetic rubber. There is no question that the ability of the German Wehrmacht to fight World War II depended on synthetic rubber, as well as on synthetic petroleum, because Germany has no natural rubber, and war would have been impossible without Farben's synthetic rubber production. Farben had a virtual monopoly on this field, and the program to produce large quantities of necessary was financed by the Reich. The volume of planned production in this field was far beyond the needs of peacetime economy. The huge costs involved are consistent only with military considerations, in which the need for self-sufficiency without regard to costs was decisive. So as in the ethanol technology transfers, Standard Oil of New Jersey was intimately associated with IG Farben's synthetic rubber. A series of joint cartel agreements were made in the late 1920s aimed at a joint world monopoly of synthetic rubber. Hitler's four-year plan went into effect in 1937, and in 1938, Standard provided IG Farben with its new Butyl rubber process. On the other hand, Standard kept the German Buna process secret within the United States. It was not until June 1940 that Firestone and U.S. Rubber were allowed to participate in testing butyl and granted the Buna manufacturing licenses. Even then, Standard tried to get the U.S. government to finance a large-scale Buna program, reserving its own funds for the more promising butyl process. So by 1940, Firestone was able to do their rubber tests.
So they delayed production in the U.S. just to slow U.S. military development.
Mm-hmm. Consequently, Standard assistance in Nazi Germany was not limited to oil from coal, although this was the most important transfer. Not only was the process for Tetherel transferred to IG Farben in a plant built in Germany owned jointly by IG General Motors Standard subsidiaries, but as late as 1939, Standard's German subsidiary designed a German plant for aviation gas. Tetraethyl was shipped on an emergency basis for the Wehrmacht, and major assistance was given in production of butyl rubber, while holding secret in the U.S. the Farben process for Buna. In other words, Standard Oil of New Jersey, first under the President W.C. Kegel, but then under W.S. Farish, constantly aided the Nazi war machine while refusing to aid the United States. This sequence of events was not an accident. President W.S. Farish argued that not to have granted such technical assistance to the Wehrmacht would have been unwarranted. The assistance was knowledgeable, ranged over more than a decade, and was so substantive that without it the Wehrmacht could not have gone to war in 1939.
Yeah, so here we have a case that it's pretty darn clear from everything that's been done that Brown Brothers Harriman and the Rockefeller families before 21 had decided to rearm Germany and recommence the First World War in Germany's favor. And this is diabolical. This is absolutely diabolical.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they could sustain it so long, it was a 20-year effort. And one thing about, if you have to grant one thing to Freemasons they are darn patient and they stick to their guns. They don't give up in their evil. They are devoted to it. And here's a classic case. And they were never caught, alas, and millions died because of it.
The last little paragraph. The Deutsche Amerikanische Petroleum, a Standard Oil subsidiary in Germany, was 94% owned by Standard Oil of New Jersey. Dopag had branches throughout Germany, a refinery in Bremen, and a head office in Hamburg. Through GAPAG, Standard Oil New Jersey was representative in the inner circles of Nazism. The Kepler Circle, Himmler's circle of friends. A director of DAPAG was Karl Lindemann, also chairman of the International Chamber of Commerce in Germany, as well as director of several banks, including Dresdner Bank, the Deutsche Reichsbank, and the private Nazi-oriented bank of C. Melchior and Company, and numerous corporations, including Hapag, Hamburg America Line. Lineman was a member of Kepler's circle of friends as late as 1944, and so gave Standard Oil New Jersey a representative at the very core of Nazism. Another member of the board of DAPAG was Emil Heifrich, who was an original member of the Kepler Circle. In sum, Standard Oil New Jersey had two members of the Kepler Circle as directors of its German wholly owned subsidiary. Payments to the Circle from the Standard Oil subsidiary company and from linemen in Heifrich as individual directors continued until 1944, the year before the end of World War II.
So we can say that Standard Oil was on the board of directors of the Nazi state.
Mm-hmm. That was the end of the chapter. So I was wondering, since we had to deal with Stripe yesterday, should we talk about what we were going to talk about yesterday about taking down those who control the actual deep state?
Maybe we should do that in a separate program so as not to mix up topics in one show. This has been this is our what is this our fourth or sixth show from Sutton's books? I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
And this is, we should call this whole series The True History of the 20th Century, or how the Freemasons screw the world. And this is what they don't teach you in American history, because if they taught it, you would never vote Democrat, Republican again.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd probably organize a gang to go down the street and burn down the local Masonic lodge. Not that you should, but you might be inspired to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you shouldn't be tearing down statues of Christopher Columbus or Juniper Sir. Those are people who built civilization. It's the people who destroyed civilization who should be punished.
Yeah. So please get his books. We'll keep searching, make sure the book I'm putting into the show page where you get is there. If it's not, I'll find other copies. Because every time you put a book in a show page and we use it, the seller has to reprint more.
It sells out. So our readers are good book buyers, and that's a good sign. If you'd like to support Ordo Militaris Radio TV, AJ will put on the website the address you can send a check to. You have to make your check payable to Ordo Militaris Incorporated, and I'll see that the funds go to this apostolate as a donation. So I thank you for all supporting us, and I ask you to pray for our association. We're getting really pounded now because we're pounding on them, they're pounding back. And if anything proves that what we're saying in these programs at Ordo Militaris is true, it's this persecution. And they try to shut us down completely for saying the truth.
Yep.
And that doesn't happen to any other Catholic apostolate because, well, they're not really telling you what's going on.
Yeah. So thank you for our benefactors who have reached out last night or early this morning saying, what's the address of sending in donation? So you'll have the link now, in the show pages until we get a new online pay service. We'll have the mailing address there, and just in the memo box on your check, will say, what's it go for? Ordo Militaris Radio TV donation. And thank you, and please continue to be generous.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on with this program, AJ. And as we continue Sutton's investigation into the involvement of U.S. companies in Nazi Germany, what other things is he going to reveal to us in the book to give listeners a kind of a taste of what's upcoming?
ITT works. Not sure what ITT is, but then chapter 6, Henry Ford and the Nazis. Then chapters, what?
I think ITT is electrical switches.
Yeah. Then chapter 7, we really getting down into the finance stuff. Who truly financed Adolf Hitler? And we go into the history of Brown Brothers Harriman.
Okay.
Then we go into Putzi, friend of Hitler and Roosevelt. Chapter 9, Wall Street, Nazi Inner Circle. And we go into this one character called Sidney Warbug. Chapter 11, Wall Street Nazi Collaboration, World War II. And there, I believe we will see the actual arrest warrant issued by the American military police for the Americans guilty of war crimes at Nuremberg, but nothing actually happens to them.
Okay, that sounds fascinating. Thank you, AJ, for having me on this for this program about Wall Street and involvement in Adolf Hitler in the Nazi state.
Yep. Please like and share this program, folks, and please share the program on Mixcloud so we get some listens. I'll remember to put the link to Mixcloud in our video pages. This is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.